Hey guys, it is Yishan here. Today I am bringing you guys with my stream, I could say hi YouTube, a deck for new players that are just getting into the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. And if you're just getting into the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, then this is the deck I wanted to show you because it's got a couple of things going for it. It's not too difficult to play, but difficult enough where you're going to learn something about the game. It's cheap. I got a budget deck for you right here. All extremely cheap cards. I think everything probably costs under 5, except for maybe the Scareclaw Tryhard. And 3, it's Halloween themed because we're in October now. Scareclaw, these are some Halloween looking dudes. The art's pretty sweet. So those are the 3 things. Super cheap. It's also getting more support in the upcoming sets. That's another reason why it's super cool. It's getting more support in the upcoming sets. For example, a card in Photon or in the Darkwing Blast that I'm looking forward to is actually basically an upgrade to Scareclaw Splash, which we'll go over. This basically lets you tribute a Scareclaw monster and target 2 cards your opponent controls and destroy them. And then basically, if you have a Link 3 or higher monster on the field, you can banish it, and then neither player can activate Link monster's effects for this turn. So a lot of support coming out. There's also Kshatriy Law support that's going to come out for this deck in the future. And if you want to upgrade it to make it a better deck, you could add cards like the Adventure Engine to it. So I'm going to be, I will be doing a deck profile on a more competitive Scareclaw build, but this is for the new players out there. Oh, one final thing. It can also beat Mystic Mine up. All those Mystic Mine Burn decks, if you get a friend that plays Mystic Mine Burn, this is the perfect deck for them. So let's go over the deck profile real quick. Okay, so I wanted to fix, first let's just start with the 9 hand traps. These are the cheapest and best hand traps I could find. Ash is gonna run you probably more than $5 because of the high demand, but the structure deck just got reprinted. So, and this is a card you're gonna use basically forever. So it's definitely worth just getting 3 Veiler, super cheap. Nibs you can buy for like $2 a piece now. So this is really good. Junk Forward, I'll explain the Junk Forward in a bit. This is a weird card, but I'll explain it to you in a bit. And then we have 3 of each Scareclaw. Okay, so if you're new to the game, I'm just going to try to explain, and I want you to read these cards, yourself. Basically, they all have the same effect, which is if you control a Scareclaw, you can summon one in the same column or this adjacent column, basically. So if you have an extra Scareclaw, you can summon one under it. Otherwise, you can summon one next to it, okay? And they all basically do nothing on summon, but basically they buff if you have a Scareclaw monster in your extra monster zone, it gets buffed by a certain effect. So this Acro gives 300 attack. Astra, probably the best one. For every different Scareclaw you have in defense position, the Tryhard can attack, or your Link monster can attack that many times. Super important, why? Because this allows you to OTK super easily. You basically have this guy that's like 4,200 attacking 3 times, and it's just easy game, right? So you don't need to run Access Code, which is super expensive, and you can still OTK your opponent. So it's got mid-range elements because it can grind, it's got control elements, and it's got OTK elements. Love that for a new player. You get to experience all different kinds of gameplay, as well as 3 Scareclaw Balone. This one does piercing, right? So your opponent can't just wall up, you can still run over all their monsters. Okay, let's talk about Rykar. Rykar is one of the best Scareclaws. Basically, this card lets you just add a Scareclaw spell or trap from your deck to your hand when it's normal or special summoned, right? And it's got the same Scareclaw thing where you can special summon it if you have another Scareclaw already. Really good, just gets you either extenders or interruptions for your opponent's turn. 1 Visas Starfrost, this is just sort of needed for the deck. It's something you can search off your Scareclaws. This is a little more complicated to how this card works. We'll get over it later, but basically, it's a good card to have 1 of in the deck. Then we've got some staples: Call by the Grave, Harpy's Feather, Monster Reborn, really good cards. And then I'm running 3 Piri Reis Map. The reason for this is it's pretty good in this deck because you can add any of the Scareclaw cards that you want to start with, right? Or if you already have a bunch of Scareclaws, you can add your hand traps. So I like its flexibility, and if you're gonna make some decisions with this card, and I really want to sort of help new players, like yourself, make some decisions. And so I think Piri Reis Map is a really solid card, also pretty cheap. 2 Desires, super cheap, really good in this deck. You don't really care what you banish, so I love that. 3 Primitive Planet Reichphobia. Okay, so this card is really good. This is how you beat Mystic Mine. First of all, basically, on activation, you just add a Scareclaw, right? Also, your opponent's monsters lose 100 attack and defense for each defense position monster on the field. So you notice the Scareclaws have a lot of cards that work. They synergize with defense position, which is pretty cool. Then, last effect, if there are 3 or more defense position monsters on the field, you just pop a card You just pop a card. Target a card your opponent controls, destroy it. So Mystic Mine is never safe because once you have this resolved, you can just pop Mystic Mine with it super easily, pop whatever you want. So basically, it's not only as a searcher, but it also pops. Reinforcement Army, this card can search Scareclaw Reichheart, but if you already have a Reichheart, you can actually search Junk 4. This is like an extender, which basically you can just special summon, because your goal of this deck is to get Scareclaw Triheart out. And look at the Scareclaw Triheart. It's the main boss monster of the deck. Super, super cool. 3 Scareclaw Arrival. This card's pretty cool. It summons back, it's a monster reborn for your Scareclaws. It's also not once per turn, so a lot of new cards are once per turn, right? And this one is not. And it also protects your Scareclaw monsters from battle or destruction. Only the ones in the actual monster zone, but still pretty good. So super, super cool there. Now, what does this mean? Right, well, okay, what does this mean? So what I like about this deck also is that all these cards, your opponents are not gonna know what they're gonna do, right? So if you're a new player, one of the most embarrassing things, or one of, not embarrassing, but like stressful things is reading your opponent's cards. Well, your opponent's gonna have to read your cards as well because they don't know what they do, so you won't feel bad reading theirs, right? Scareclaw Straddle, this one's pretty cool. Basically, you can either buff attack or protect from targeting, okay? So that's really what this one does. And then Scareclaw Splash, basically, this is a negate. So basically, you can search this and just flip it up, and then it negates anything as long as you control a Scareclaw in the extra monster zone. Okay, side deck, pretty straightforward. Cosmic for back row removal, Dark Ruler for going second decks. Alpha, synergizes well for this. 3-dimensional barrier. This is just a thing that breaks boards and it special summons itself because this deck really likes link material. 3D barrier because it stops like all those, you know, silly tier elements. And 3 different dimension ground. This is like super, super good. You know, going first, these two are really, really good against tier and a lot of decks in the format. Okay, let's go extra deck. Most important cards I wanted to talk about, the 3 Scareclaw Triheart. Okay, so this is the boss monster of the deck. Okay, super, super cool. And basically, it takes 3 effect monsters. So you can't use a Link 2 and another monster. You have to actually use 3 physical monsters. But once it's summoned, everything gets changed to defense, except for Link monsters. Link monsters have to stay in attack mode by rule, but everything else gets changed to defense, and it's unaffected by anything that activates in defense mode. Secondly, it's grinds super well because you can take a level 3 Scareclaw in your graveyard once per turn, special it back, and add a Scareclaw to your hand. So super, super, really, really grinding. So it's a +2 basically because you get to summon the Scareclaw and add one to your hand, and then you can OTK and do all that stuff, right? So if you want, or if it survives a turn, you're good. So this is that. So you have 3 Scareclaw Lightheart. This is a new card from Power of the Elements. This card is basically really good because it adds the field spell. On Link Summon, it just adds the field spell as long as it's linked to the extra monster zone. It's not once per turn, hilariously enough, so you can do it as multiple times as you want, but you have to summon to the extra monster zone if you want the effect. And then the field spell adds into the Scareclaw, so that's how that works. We have Nightmare Unicorn, Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Cerberus, just standard links. IP for some interruption, you don't really have to run any. Basically, you only need these 3 in your extra deck. These 6 are the best. Gossip Shadow is basically 2 level 3s and it can act as a monster effect negator. Ashura King is pretty funny. If you have 3 level 3s, you can just make a huge guy and go crazy, but it's not like it's not that broken. And yeah, we got some Charmers and stuff, but this is what our deck is. Let's get into a game and show you guys how it sort of plays. So I'll be right back. We're back here with our duel. It's Future Yishan here. I did this duel on stream, but I had a hard time commentating through it and it took a long time, and so I thought I'd just do a replay. This was a super, super cool duel with the Scareclaw deck. Lots of things happened. Really, really cool stuff. So let's just get right into the duel and let's see what happens here. So I win rock, paper, scissors, which is nice. And this is going to be a duel against tier elements, okay? Because that is a really, really strong deck, and I wanted to show how to play against a strong deck. Now, first thought I see here, I opened a lot of starters, right? So remember, Rhoda can only search what we saw in our deck, our Junk Forward, or the Reichheart, right? And we already have a Reichheart, so this can search the Junk Forward. So that was the first thing I noticed, like, hey, we're getting the Rhoda value here by searching Junk Forward. We also opened Puri's Map. Now remember, this can get a level 3 Scareclaw from your deck to your hand, but we already have our Reichheart, we already have the Primeval Planet Reichphobia, so we basically already have 2 Scareclaw monsters, so this can get a hand trap. So my first thought was, okay, let's start with the Puri's Map, and what we can do is here we can grab Effect Veiler, right? So we run Effect Veiler and Ash. I say we should grab Effect Veiler because, well, we have Veiler and Nibiru. That's a really, really good combo to clear your opponent's board, and we still don't know what we're up against yet, so I just went for Veiler and then take the 4,000. Now I go for Rhoda. Rhoda's going to get the Junk Forward because, like I said, we want to use it as an extender. And so that was my thought process going here. So we go Junk Forward, and then we go Scareclaw Reichheart. Okay, we activate the effect, and it nothing happens to it, so we get the arrival. Now, I'd recommend, like, if you're going to Valor something in this deck, you should either Valor the Link 1 or the Link 3. Both are good options. But we'll see what happens here. We go with Rykart into our Lichtheart. I just call it Lightheart, but it's more like Lichtheart. This one is going to add or it's Lightheart. This is going to add the field spell. I guess it is called Lightheart. Sorry, originally it was called Lichtheart, but Lightheart is just easier to say. So Lightheart's going to add the field spell. He doesn't Valor here. We go Primitive Planet here. Keep going. We grab ourselves the Scareclaw Acro, and then we special summon it, and then we link them all off for the Triheart, and then Triheart effect. We target the Acro, and I'm surprised he didn't Valor this here. I feel like he should have, but you know, that is what it is, I guess. He decided to go for the Haffinus instead, and mills 3, mills a Solic, which basically adds a tier elements to his hand. I like to go for Acro on the first turn play because this one is the one that gives attack points for each for Scareclaws you control. So yeah, I like to go for Acro first, and there we go. So I add the Rykart to my hand. Rykart's the best for follow-up. Now I added Arrival off the Rykart. So remember, I added Arrival off the Rykart. You can also add Scareclaw Splash, which is like an Omni Negate. However, I had Valor and Nibiru in my hand, so I decided to add the Monster Reborn card for next turn, basically. That was my idea. It's for follow-up for next turn. Okay, so that's the first turn board. Nothing too impressive, but we do have our Triheart with 2 hand traps backed up. So he's going to use Solic, search Shyren, and then we're going to pass the turn here. Now, okay, next turn, our opponent, we're going to try to, you know, go through his plays with some maybe more relative quickness here. I don't know why he held this Valor. That one was a little bit strange here, but we're going to continue here. And so he's going to go Rhoda, and he's going to get sort of the opposite of Rykart, which is Rhinoheart. These two decks are related in lore, by the way, just so that you know. So Rhinoheart's going to come to the hand, and then we're going to summon it. And we're going to see some standard stuff, but he's going to dump Haffinus, and then Haffinus is going to trigger, is going to shuffle back 2 for Kit Kalos. Now, just recommendation here, I always just say you should just effect Valor this thing. This thing is super strong when it goes off, and it's usually worth the Valor on this guy. So that was my plan here. It does lose really hard to Super Polymerization. They can Super Polymerization your Triheart and your Kit Kalos and dodge the Valor, but you can't play around that, I think, so you just have to Valor there. So I do Valor, and he goes Planet, adds a Haffinus, which makes sense, and then uses the Shyren to mill 3, and then uses the Merly that they discarded to do that, and they're just starting to fuse. This is some confusion here, but basically they're just fusing for this. And then you can use the field spell to pop my Triheart, which really sucks. But Triheart making everything go into defense mode is really nice because it's going to just save me from getting OTK'd because I activated Pure Uri's map on the first turn. Right, so, okay, he's going to use his field spell since he shuffled or shuffled an Aqua back or a Tier Elements back and pop my Triheart. Then he's going to go Desires here. And he's going to draw some cards, and we're not really too worried about this. He's going to send this, add this back, you know, whatever this plays. Redoer is going to attack me, set 1, pass the turn. Main phase 2, we're going to go Nibiru here. So Nibiru to try to clear out this Dragostapelia, and also force him to use the Redoer on my turn, because remember, if I let this live to his turn, he can reuse the tier elements that he detaches from it again. So I wanted to force this out. I summon out the token, I summon out the Nibiru. It's also good, I change it here, but you want to usually summon your Nibiru in defense position, especially main phase 2, because you have a lot of benefits of cards being in defense position. So that's what happens. He goes and he gets to fuse one more time because he hasn't used Shyren. So he does 3, and he summons out a tier elements Kaleidoheart. Kaleidoheart's going to shuffle back the Planetary Planet Reichphobia, which is an okay play, but I actually have another one in my hand. So I think he probably should have shuffled back the Nibiru because that's just an extender for me. He gets to return Brendan and High Spirits back to his hand, and then gets to use his Time Thief Reader in his standby phase. Okay, so all that happened. Nothing too crazy here, but luckily I don't see too much, you know, answers. Too many answers, like too much interruption, right? And let's see what I can do here. So I go and I normal summon my Acro. He's actually thinking on summon here, so Nothing happens, and we use our Lightheart again. Lightheart's just basically here to get another Reichphobia. He uses the Veiler now. A mistake here at this point, because I actually have the Reichphobia in hand. He probably should have done this like a while ago, but you know, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Like, you just save it for the Link 3, usually. I'd recommend saving the Veilers for the Link 3. Reichhart's going to go, and it's going to use its effect. Now, really important point here. Reichhart, when it uses effect, if there's 3 or more defense position monsters on the field, you just get to draw a free card. And there's a token, Nibiru, and me. So it counts your opponent's cards as well. And so I'm actually going to draw a card. He's going to go Halfness to try and summon Mill 3. He does mill a fusion card, you know, not the end of the world. So, I mean, that's just going to happen. He's going to be shuffling back more of my stuff. I get to draw my free card from that, and he gets to do all his effects. So he's going to add the Merly. He's going to fusion summon something. He's going to go for Dragostopelia for Mud Dragon, and but luckily this is not another interruption, so I'm good here. The Primeval Planet Perlino can pop a card, so he just pops this. Not really a big deal for me. I don't really care. So I go Scareclaw to try to summon back my Acro, and then we're going to go for some more plays. Now, we have 3 monsters. What does that mean? It's time for probably the Tryhard. But first, I say, hey, Liz, look. I got 3 monsters in defense position. I want to use the Primitive Planet now so I can pop his back row, just, you know, because I don't know what it is. So I want to pop his back row before anything happens. I use the Primitive Planet Reichphobia, pop his back row. He chains it, does some dancing, basically. None of this stuff really matters, but he does get to pop my card with the Tearlaments Kaleido Heart. Now, after all this, I still have an arrival. I have 2 arrivals in my hand because of Reichhart. So I go and special summon my Astra back. Okay, so I get popped. I've been getting popped. I've been getting shuffled. Everything's been happening. This has been popping my cards. This has been shuffling my cards. But it's okay because we go for 3 and we summon our Tryhard. And that forces everything in defense mode, okay, here. And then our Tryhard can revive stuff here, right? So what do we do here? We use our Tryhard, and we target our Astra, because Astra is the one that lets us attack multiple times, okay? And then we're going to add a Balone to our hand, the Piercer. Now that everything's in defense, we need the Piercer to actually do damage, right? And then we can special summon our Piercer. And remember, Arrival is not once per turn. The Monster Reborn effect is not once per turn. So our last card in our hand is Arrival. We target the Acro. He says, my opponent says, you already used it this turn. Most Yu-Gi-Oh cards are hard ones per turns. This one is not for some reason. And so it's really the best. And I get to summon back the Acro. And now look at this. I have the one that buffs 300 for each defense position. So this is at 3,900. This one lets you attack as much times as you want, up to the number of Scareclaws in defense you have. So this is 3 different names. So we can attack 3 times, and it pierces. Also, all my opponent's monsters are losing 800 attack and defense because monsters my opponent controls loses 100 attack and defense for each defense position monster on the field. So I basically assembled like the super combo of the deck, and it does not matter how many cards he has on his field. I can just attack 3 times here. So let's see what happens here. And before I attack, though, he uses the Redoer, which is smart because it gets rid of a card in the field in defense position, so his monsters are losing 100 less. But this is 3,900. This is, I think, 300, so we're doing 3,600 on the first attack. And that's going to be, so my opponent made a slight mistake. It's actually 3,600. But look at this. We're going to attack 3 times. This is crazy. I mean, how can you OTK through a board like this? This is like basically like the only deck in the game that can do this, which is super cool. I was like, wow, we sort of assembled all 3 Scareclaws. We have our Tryhard. And we, you know, it's kind of funny because it's our Tryhard, so it uses 3 Scareclaws, and then boom, we go in there for lethal. And really cool game 1. So, okay, fast forward game 2. You know, Tearlaments matchup. Going second is going to be rough here. I put in Dimensional Barrier anyway because I'm hoping I can just survive a turn and de-barrier. But that's okay. So we're going to try our best here, and we're going to see what happens. So we go Chiron. You know, we're just going to go through the plays. You know, Tearlaments players, they just got all the stuff, right? So they do a lot of effects. Blah, blah, blah. We're just going to assume it's all legal. Shuffling some stuff back, summoning Kikalos. We Veiler here again because that makes sense, right? Okay, so Planet has come down. He's got all the gas here. He's going to do some stuff, mill some cards, make the Redoer, trigger the Chiron. Chiron's going to summon some stuff back, so he's going to summon another Kikalos. He's not going to use the search, but he can still use the effect to send one and summon one. I'm sorry I'm going through this really fast. If you're a new player, this is probably not going to make too much sense to you, but Tearlaments is a pretty complicated deck. We just let them do their thing, you know? I say, okay, we just Veiler this guy and let them do their thing is sort of the idea here. They summon Sprite Elf, end phase, get some stuff back. So not the most impressive first turn board. Of course, we top decked the Nibiru, which would have been totally sick to have if we could have Nibiru'd this board, because then they wouldn't have a Sprite Elf mill, but you know, it's okay. That's Yu-Gi-Oh, right? So we have, again, our Rhoda here. So we're going to, he's going to stand by face, use this Time Thief Redoer. We have our Rhoda again, and we have right cards again, so we're just going to go for the Junk Forward. Junk Forward special. Normal this, add Arrival. Okay, so this makes sense. Everything makes sense to me so far here. We're just going to keep trying to make our play. So we're probably going to go into Lightheart next, I would imagine, because, you know, we want to get the field spell. But first, Sprite Elf is going to do this. It's going to summon Merrily. Merrily is going to mill 3 here. And so we're just going to have to hope that he doesn't mill good cards. He mills a Solik, which is not a big deal because he's already going to, you know, that's not a fusion at least. So we luck out there. We get to summon our Lightheart. Okay, Lightheart effect's going to trigger, is going to add Astra, and then Astra is going to, or sorry, this is supposed to add the field spell, and then the field spell is supposed to add Astra. So I sort of messed up the order. This can add the field spell is supposed to add the Astra there. Okay, and then now we add the Astra to our hand. We special summon. We use our primeval planet Reichphobia to try to pop his Perlina because there's 3 monsters in defense position. It works. We link all this stuff off. By the way, we couldn't target any of these. Maybe we should have targeted the Sprite Elf. That might have been a mistake here. I probably should have targeted the Elf because I have D-Barrier. So maybe my goal is to try to just clear off as much of his board as I can. So I target the Elf. Maybe that's probably a better play. I use my Triheart to try to special summon back here. He gets his Merly effect. He mills, so that's kind of unlucky for me with his halfness, but it is what it is. So he gets the fusion summon again. 1, 2, 3. Summons this one. Shuffles back my Astra, which is super annoying. Super annoying because I already used the summon effect this turn, which might have been a mistake because I have no good way to get Astra now to the graveyard. And it's super frustrating because I'm at another point here where I can almost OTK, right? I have Balone and I have Arrival, and let me show you some tricks here. So like at least like I could maybe make a better play here. So let me see what I'm trying to show you here. Let's see. So I can summon these 2 out, right? And I can make another Triheart, which is really cool because remember I didn't summon out Reichheart. The problem though is that now because my Astra is in my deck, the one that lets you attack a bunch of times, I can't really get it back out onto the field. The only way to get it back out on the field, because you can only summon them with their own effects once per turn, is to use Scareclaw Arrival. But it's not in my graveyard anymore. It doesn't pop, right? It doesn't pop this guy that shuffles. So I'm actually so close to OTKing here because remember I'm gonna try to revive the Balone, get the Acro, but I just can't quite get to the Astra here, and it's really frustrating because it's so close, right? Like you'll see this trick where you take a Triheart, because it's not once per turn, by the way. Triheart to summon back and add is not once per turn. You can sort of like keep changing the configuration of the monsters that are on the field. And Triheart's going to summon back Balone. I can get Acro, but I can't quite get Astra. And Astra's the one that lets you attack twice, right? So for example, if I had the Astra in my graveyard, I would have had a better shot, right? I would have had a better shot. I could have revived it, added Acro, you know, used Arrival to summon back Balone or something like that, and that could have worked better. But I can't quite get enough things here because if I could get 3 of them, if I could get all 3 of them again, this is probably at least I can clear their whole board, right? And then I can set D-Barrier. It might even be close to lethal at that point, honestly, because this is so weak, right? So I'm probably doing a lot of damage to these 2. So really close there. Unfortunately, I can't quite get all my stuff out, so I just decided, okay, I'm going to keep the Acro in my hand for next turn. The problem is, though, now I'm a little bit stuck because I have, you know, a D-Barrier, and I just didn't clear his board, though. I didn't clear it enough. And so what you're going to see happen here is that I'm going to try to go next turn. He's going to do his thing, going to make the Unicorn to put back my Triheart, sort of to be expected. He does his stuff. I probably should have let him summon more. This was a mistake. I used D-Barrier on the Kit Kalos, and I thought for some reason it would still summon, but D-Barrier negates the effects of fusions as well, and I probably should have tried to bait him into Nibiru. I probably should have let him summon more and then tried to use Dimensional Barrier and Nibiru in combination together to get to win here. So I think I made a misplay here, right? My opponent's not going to summon 5 times anymore right now because he can't fusion summon, so he's not really summoned that much. And I really should have, I should have baited him a little more. That was my fault there. I'm still alive, though. I take 2,700. He has a Nibiru in his hand, so it's really rough. But the problem is he's going to make Zeus. Yeah, so I actually can't beat Nibiru. Now, I didn't know he had Nibiru when I played this game. But now, like, no matter what I do, it's just not going to be enough, right? I can go here, I can Scareclaw Arrival, summon my guy back, I can use the Reichphobia to try to pop the Zeus, but then he sends my board to the graveyard, and then this Kit Callus is going to trigger, and then he's going to mill 5, and he's going to fusion summon more, and it's just like, okay, all right, I can't win now, right? He's going to fusion summon for a negate, and that's probably going to be all she wrote. So, okay, game 3, I probably misplayed that one a little bit, probably would have still lost to the Nibiru anyway, but game 3, here we are. Here we go. I've got my reinforcement of the army. Again, I can't believe I opened this like 3 games in a row and all that stuff. So we got our different dimension ground and our D-barrier looking really, really good. You know, we have our setup here. We've got our anti-skill cards here, and we go Reichheart, any Veilers. Okay, Veiler. But luckily we have Scareclaw Straddle. Remember, this can protect from targeting. So we protect from targeting. Okay. And we grab our Scareclaw Arrival to our hand. Now we get to make the Lightheart. Lightheart can add the Reichphobia, and this is where we go crazy. We go Reichphobia, get the aggro, right? Remember, it was important that we had to get Arrival here. In our first game, we got to choose between Arrival and the Scareclaw Slash, because Scareclaw Slash is an Omni Negate. But we need to get 3 monsters, so the Reichheart has to search for the Arrival here, right? And so the Arrival is going to go, it's going to summon back the Reichheart, and then we can special summon the aggro out, and then we can turn these 3 into our big boss monster, Scareclaw Tryhard, and we summon back the aggro, and then we grab the Reichheart for follow for next turn. So I really recommend for follow-up, usually grab Reichheart. If we're trying to OTK, you might want to grab the other level 3s. Remember, this special summons from your grave and adds a Scareclaw to your hand. So now we have our anti-fun cards here, Dimensional Barrier and Different Dimension Ground. I'd want to use my Dimensional Barrier first. Why is that? Well, it's because I don't want this to die, basically, right? I want this to stay on the field if I can. So I go D-Barrier here, and maybe I should have went Different Dimension Ground, because Different Dimension Ground doesn't work well against Time Thief Redoer. And Time Thief Redoer, because Time Thief Redoer, it has materials that it detaches for effect, but the materials are not considered monsters, and this only sends monsters, this only banishes monsters, so those will still get their effects. But I went for the D-Barrier because I didn't want this to be banished, because this can only summon back level 3 Scareclaws, and I have no level 3 Scareclaws in the graveyard. So that was sort of the issue there, but I D-Barrier, he does his thing, and then draws a card, and then, but see, he can still make a rank 4, which is really, really good, because he actually ends on interruptions through D-Barrier. Now, Standby Phase is going to try to attach with Time Thief Redoer. Actually, it's super lucky here, so I want to point this out. He actually attaches a Balone, which is pretty lucky for me, and I'll go over why that is in a bit. But first thing I need to do is, I see 3 monsters in defense position, or 2 right now, and this is going to be a 3rd, so I try to go for the Reichheart. Okay, Reichheart effect, and he actually called by the graves, the Reichheart of my graveyard, so this is actually negated. That's okay, though. I got rid of his interruption here. I use my Reichphobia to try to pop his Time Thief Redoer, okay? And so we see what happens here. We pop his Redoer, okay, pop his Redoer. What does he do? He chains it. We just wanted to get the Redoer out of the way. Let's let him use it now. Plus, this puts the Balone in our graveyard, okay? So super, super strong here. He's going to try to use his Shiren to fusion summon. So he uses Shiren, Reinhardt, but he has to use these 3 to summon the Kaleidoheart. Kaleidoheart's going to put the level 3 Scareclaw aggro to the bottom of my deck. The problem is, he actually attached Balone with his own Redoer, so I still have a level 3 Scareclaw in my graveyard, which makes it so that I can use my Tryhard to special summon it back, and then add the Astra. And here's where it gets crazy, where we just link these 3 off. We make another Tryhard special, and then we can special again. And the problem is that even this Havness can't do anything, right? Because look, we have our OTK here again. Even if he Havnesses, what is he going to fusion into? There's nothing that can happen. This can't be affected by anything that turns to defense position, right? So that's why he couldn't shuffle our Tryhard back, because this is in defense position. He can't summon the fusion one, because he has a fusion here. He can't summon the Predaplant Dracos to pellet, because first of all, Predaplant can't negate this, and none of these are activated effects, so that doesn't do anything, right? So really nothing he does can actually do anything, and all we do is we just set up our three Scareclaws with our Tryhard, and then boom, attack for game. So this is a really, really cool game. We get to showcase a lot of the stuff in the Scareclaw deck. Super, super fun, really, really intense, kind of pretty competitive too. So this is the power of the Scareclaw deck. It's got some pretty amazing recursion actually, and OTK potential. So I hope I showed off sort of all the cool interactions with the deck. We didn't get to use Scareclaw Splash, but we got to see Pure Reese map add a hand trap, Rhoda search for junk forward. We got to see Tryhard used multiple times in the same turn. We got to see Arrival used multiple times in the same turn. So a lot of cool things. We saw the popping from the primitive planet Reichphobia, the attack and defense reduction being actually relevant here. So a lot of cool things here. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. Again, I'm going to be doing some even more competitive Scareclaw deck profiles on the channel in a bit, but I hope, you know, if you're thinking about playing Scareclaws, you're looking for a budget deck, or you're just a new player getting into the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, I hope this has been helpful for you guys. If it has been, please consider subscribing, liking the video. I would appreciate that a lot. It does help the channel. We're getting towards 10,000 guys. But yeah, this is a really fun deck. Pretty cheap. I think all in all, it's about $150 US. The whole thing, main, extra, and side, which is incredibly cheap for something that's including staple hand traps, including a really good side deck, and including a very solid extra deck, right? So really awesome. I think Scareclaw is a really cool concept. If you're a new player, this is, I think, a perfect deck for a new player. And if you're an experienced player, it's still a lot of fun to play. It's really cool. And I think it's got a cool, you know, defense position gimmick. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, that's it. Check out my affiliate links in the description. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys all in the next video.